Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where yesterday Ron Howard on social media, he's become a real social media maven. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But Ron Howard revealed the official title for the new Han Solo movie, and it's called Solo, which I think left a lot of people just at a loss for words, because they only gave us one word, right? And so it trended, and not even Solo trended, by the way. Han Solo trended because, really, what is Solo? It trended, I think, in large part, not only because people just were like, I don't know what to make of that. It seems like a really bad business idea, right? But also there was nothing else to talk about yesterday. So they kind of lucked out that they made the announcement in a dead space of, entertainment news. But I didn't even make a video about it because there was nothing to discuss, okay? It was Ron Howard, once again, the face of this movie, which I find absolutely mystifying considering the amazing cast that they've assembled. We'll talk about that too. But the thing that made me finally decide to talk about it here was that I saw a trade ask the question as to whether or not any title would have really made a difference and got people talking. And I was like, yes, a specific title would have definitely been a much better idea. So I wanted to discuss that. But let's start with Ron Howard, because again, as I said, he has made himself the face of this film, which I find a really weird and perhaps distasteful choice. So he's adorable, though. I think Ron Howard's enthusiasm, he's so happy to be back in the game because, he's had a rough time directing movies. Loved Rush. I think it was a fantastic movie. As I've said, he directed like a hot new director fresh out of school trying to prove something. But nobody went to see Rush, unfortunately, or paid attention to it. It was not like it was discovered later. And then In the Heart of the Sea was also, I think, a very ambitious film, but not a great movie, right? So, I mean, Lord and Miller being fired has been a tremendous opportunity for Ron Howard. And the fact that he's a good soldier and will do whatever Lawrence Kasdan and Kathleen Kennedy want. I thought it was hilarious that he tweeted a photo of himself with Lawrence Kasdan's son being, like warming themselves by a droid fire. Just he was trying to be humorous, but I was like, the real story here, Ron Howard, is that you realized to be nice to Lawrence Kasdan's son and, the screenwriter, co-screenwriter on this movie, because Lord and Miller rewriting that individual is what got them largely fired. So I was like, hilarious, okay? But I do think that making himself the face of the movie and having such glee at the opportunity is a little bit offensive considering what happened to Lord and Miller, right? It's like, you literally are dancing on their Hollywood career grave. I mean, maybe they'll recover. I think there's a very good chance they'll recover. They already signed up for a new project, on the new Andy Weir novel, adapting that, which is the guy who wrote The Martian. So that's good. They rebounded to some degree. But still, I don't know. It's like just a modicum of regret for how you got the gig, Ron Howard, I think would be potentially a good idea. And also, again, I don't understand why they're not focusing on the rest of the cast, especially when we have not really seen the new Han Solo, Alden Ehrenreich. There have been, that one cast photo that they released. Then there have been some blurry photos of him on set. It's like, why are you hiding the new Han Solo? And by having the title be Solo, and this is just the Han Solo movie, and it's just you're building on the strength of what Harrison Ford created with the character, but he doesn't have anything to do with the movie. And Alden Ehrenreich couldn't be further from Harrison Ford. So it's just very, very, I think, very weird. I prefer Red Cup, which is what they called the movie for a very long time when Lord and Miller were working on it, and I think that's a really great example of their fantastic humor because, Solo cups are those, famous red cups that are, a staple of any party. So I thought that was great. So here's that big question that spurred me to talk about this. Would another title have mattered? And I think for sure, because I think it would have changed the conversation. Instead here, it's just so obvious. One of my favorite tweets, I tweeted about it. I'll talk about the lack of risk-taking in just a second. But somebody to that's called Solo, tweeted out a gif of Han Solo saying, I know, when Princess Leia said, I love you. But, the I know, it's like, of course it's called Solo. It's the most obvious title you could think of. And I tweeted out myself that this was just a lack of risk-taking. Ron Howard, I think he's taken risks as a filmmaker with Rush, for instance, and In the Heart of the Sea, but I don't think that's why he was hired here. I think he was hired here to be studio friend Ron Howard. And then by just calling it Solo, again, it's like they're just like, do you like Han Solo? Well, here's a whole movie about him. But what about the fact that ever since they announced it, people have been like, we didn't ask for a Han Solo movie. Where's the Obi-Wan Kenobi movie, right? So I think that if they had had a title like Kessel Run, as many people suggested, or Han and Lando, at least get Lando in there because he has such a strong fan base, I think that it would have changed the conversation off of Lord and Miller's firing, and also that nobody wants a new Han Solo movie. So I think that it would have been a much better idea to have just a title that alluded to what the story would be and made it seem less like just a marketing idea. That they're like, we need to keep Han Solo, around as a character, and pass the mantle from Ford to someone else because Ford really didn't want it anymore. But no passing has even been done, so it's weird. I think it's a very odd movie. I'll be curious to see what it finally looks like when they do release a teaser, or maybe finally some official images that actually show us something. You tease Ron Howard. His images are adorable, but not that great, getting you excited about anything. All right, so next up, the power of movies. We know a lot of you sometimes are like, we discussed this with Black Panther and with Wonder Woman, but it comes into effect here again. It's like, oh, who cares who's cast in the movie or who's in it? It doesn't matter. I just want to be entertained. I see that argument all the time. And as I say all the time, in response to that, who's in movies affects how people see themselves, how other people see that demographic. It's important. And Hidden Figures has had, I think, a very a positive effect. And that has led to enough momentum for Lego to create a set of women of NASA that was based on a suggestion for MIT's Maya Weinstock on their Lego Ideas website. You submit ideas for Lego sets, and if it gets enough upvotes, they're like, well, obviously people would buy this, let's make it. But I don't think without Hidden Figures, that set would have gotten quite the attention that it did, especially because Katherine Johnson, Taraji P. Henson's character, was supposed to be a part of the set. She was proposed as part of it. Unfortunately, she didn't give approval to be a Lego figure, which I find very weird. So of course they couldn't use her. By the way, on a side note, if you've never watched Beyond the Brick, a Lego brickumentary, it's available on iTunes. I highly recommend that you watch it. It's a fascinating documentary about how a company reinvented itself and became very, in large part, its success is totally based on its community outreach. I mean, it's amazing. But it's also interesting because it's a rare opportunity to see the spotlight on a company that's not American. Usually when people talk about companies, it's always, a company here in the United States. But here, this is totally a European company, and everyone who works there is largely, it's fascinating. It's really, really cool. So I highly recommend that. But anyway, I hope that this will contain not just a booklet about these women that are spotlighted here. Some of you tweeted me back this morning when I tweeted about this that it will. But even like a documentary, because, people a lot of times like visuals. So, a documentary with some interviews about the women showcased here who are still alive, or, archival footage of the ones who unfortunately are not. But I think that would be fabulous. And also some science games. I think that, it has to be, it's hard to play with the set that they've created. It's more like a display set. And I think they probably feel a lot of adults are going to buy it, and that's why they did it that way. But it should have science games so that it keeps any little girls or anybody who buys it engaged in science. Not like, I built it, I stuck it on a shelf, and then I'm going to go back to what else I was doing, right? It's like, what's the interactive quality here? So I think that would have been nice. But this is great. We just talked about Universal with Jurassic World, Jurassic Evolution yesterday. And Universal building up their branding department. This is great. I think this is fabulous, and I hope that more companies, if you have an educational component to your movie, it would be really fabulous, and it would really, I think, get the support of even more parents. Disney does this a lot, actually. This isn't Disney, but Disney is very big on this with particularly like science, contests. Often involved with their Marvel movies. But oddly, it's hard to understand how it connects to the movie sometimes, and maybe that's why they don't really quite click. But I think moving movie merchandise into the educational field area, I think, is a really good idea, and I hope it continues. All right, so the holiday season is coming up, Christmas and other holidays. Hanukkah, all the good gift holidays. You should perhaps give this to somebody, even if they don't want it. Be like, come on, get into it. it's just a Lego set. Let's build it. It's a fun afternoon at least. And let's read the booklet and Google these women. All right, so the next story of the day, the third story, is that I found someone in Hollywood who likes Netflix. As we've discussed, Netflix is the scourge of Tinseltown, beating everybody, particularly in the television business. But Netflix is loved very much so by the CW and Riverdale. This is an amazing story. So everybody's been thinking, how can we use streaming to help us, right, instead of being the bane of our existence? So what the Riverdale people did was that they put season 1 immediately after it ended, being televised, the season completed. They dropped it on Netflix so people could binge watch it over the summer. And the result, this result is amazing. 60% growth in the live ratings and a 400% growth in teen viewership. That is amazing. And that's a lot of ad dollars. That's a very coveted audience. So the ad rates on Riverdale are going to shoot through the ceiling. And this is just fantastic. And the CW worked very hard to overcome the hurdle of letting viewers from Netflix know that to watch the new season, they had to watch it on the CW, either when it aired live or DVR it, or go to the CW streaming service. I think that's CW Seed. It's basically just CW's website, to watch it there. And they succeeded because the season 2 premiere is the most watched episode ever on CW's streaming platform. That's amazing. But I think a lot of credit also goes to the actors in the show because their social media presence is very strong. They work very hard to reach out to fans, particularly when the show is on the air. So this is huge. This is very exciting for the Sabrina show that they're working on to, I think probably be like a packaged night. I don't think Dynasty is going to work out. That's what they're currently trying to have ride the coattails of Riverdale. On Wednesday nights, tonight, if you're interested in watching it, it's a very good show. I enjoy it. And I'm curious to see if maybe this will eventually work out to a film because these numbers are very, very strong. Maybe even a Netflix movie because so much of the audience lives there. Netflix does have to make 80 movies next year. Why not a Riverdale movie? Or Riverdale Sabrina crossover? You're welcome, CW and Riverdale producers, Archie Comics producers. That's a really good idea. All right, so the viewer question is fabulous. It comes from Madison Cahill. And Madison has a really great question. So Madison says, "Hey Grace, what way do you recommend getting into television animation for those who can't afford or are educated enough to get into a university and internships? Also, I don't know if you have, but you should totally watch Rick and Morty." Madison, I am so absolutely thrilled that you enjoy Rick and Morty enough so it makes you want to get into that business. My love of movies is what led me to do this, and I think it's really great to look at something that you love and say, I'd like to do that professionally. I think that's just fabulous. So your question really moved me, and not only that your enthusiasm to be in passion to be a part of something that you love, but also I understand your difficult situation about not being able to afford, the traditional entry of studying at university and getting an internship through your college, because that's a lot of times how internships are done these days, particularly because they have to protect themselves these days from liability. So it used to be you could intern for free, who cares where you came from, but now you have to usually do it for school credit so that they don't have to worry about getting sued. All right, so here's what you can do, Madison. You can respectfully basically beg people that you can find at animation production companies. So you have to do your research. So you should go online and find out what animation studios are near you or that you can get to. I don't know if you are of school age or not, but I think that, it would be ideal if you were of school age, but I'm going to give you just advice that I think that would help anybody. All right, so find the production studios near you for animation, and also find individuals on social media and start following them and try to interact with them. Now, be very careful. Always be respectful and never ask for a handout. It needs to seem like you're doing the best that you can under the circumstances that you find yourself in. That's very, very important because you want to make it look like you're doing everything that you can, not that you want a shortcut, okay? So always be respectful and don't bug anyone. Pace out your requests, right? Don't make it so long that the person forgets about you, but don't make it that they're like, I wish I hadn't started this interaction, okay? And before you reach out to anyone, you have to do everything that you can on your end. You have to know your research. You should read up about the business, know who the big figures in the business are. Go to a convention. That's, but often, make sure that the convention has people going to it who actually work in the industry, not just people from the publicity department who are there to hand out, things to fans. You want to make sure that there'll actually be people there, and they often are. So do everything that you can, read about it, and also you should do some animation yourself. Hand-drawn animation, computer animation. Get whatever job that you can, save up money, and try to invest in a computer and an animation program so that you can say, I'm doing what I can. All right? You have to look like you've made some effort and you're doing the best that you can. You actually are working toward it. All right? Then reach out to these individuals and explain your situation and see if someone would be willing to take a chance on you with an internship. You're going to have to get an internship to start. That's just where you have to begin. Or if they have like a job, maybe like a job where you can start out that you could do with not too much experience. That's another possibility. But you have to make sure that you wouldn't be considered a burden to the company or the individual. And the thing is that they don't want to have a situation where one day you come in and you go, look, I love working here, but I have to pay rent. I have to get food. I have bills to pay. And then they're going to be like, well, where does that leave me? Because when we started this conversation, I said I couldn't afford to pay you. So they want to make sure that you have a place to live, that you have someone looking after you. That's why it's better if you are perhaps still living at home. And you can do that at any age, right? So that's something very important. Just make sure that the company understands that you're taken care of, and there's never going to be a chance where you're like, I tried so hard to make this work, but now I find myself in a bad position and I'm going to look to you to fix it. They're going to be like, that is really scary, and we don't want to find ourselves in that position. So just do what you can. It's going to take a little bit longer probably, but just in your short question, I thought that you really I thought you really seemed like a wonderful person, and I was really moved by your question. So I think you're on the right track, but just make sure you continue to keep that quality when you reach out to others. So I hope that's helpwell to you and anyone who finds himself in a similar situation. Thank you everybody for tuning in today. Please write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories, Madison's viewer question, any advice that you might have for Madison, particularly if you have any involvement in the animation field. Write down anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and of course any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.